to my next topic real quick. I'm going to talk about some of the things because I've been using Android 11 for a while, and here are some of the things that's been kind of bugging me between the Android 11 bugs and some of the changes that they implemented. It's kind of getting on my nerves, and it's frustrating me. And I'm kind of curious if you guys are dealing with the same thing with the new Android 11. Now, for a lot of us that's probably or that's using Android 11, most of us are on Pixels or a phone that is on Android 11. Now, for you guys who are not on Android 11 yet, it'll be worth noting or seeing if you guys end up having the same issue. Now, one of the things I've noticed is the picture-in-picture feature is distorted. Now, it don't always happen because I use picture-in-picture a lot. I'll be watching a YouTube video, and then while I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm trying to answer an email or do some other stuff, answer a text. So a lot of times I'll go ahead and swipe up and go into PIP mode so I can do something else. Now, for the most part, it works great. It's not a big deal. But when I do notice the problem is, let's say I'm watching a live YouTube video, something like a lot of times I watch Dave Ramsey, and he'll have his live YouTube going, and I'll swipe that up and go into PIP mode so I can do something else. And I notice it'll be distorted, and it'll just like freeze up, or the picture will freeze up. Now, the video and everything, or the sound will still be playing, but the video you can see just stopped and everything like that. And I noticed that, like, man, okay, this is obviously an issue. I didn't have this issue before, so definitely a bug with Android 11. Another thing, home screen navigation. Now, people have talked about this for a while, ever since Google decided to get away with the buttons and go to the full navigation feature they're going on now. I really haven't loved it. Now, for me personally, I prefer the pill. I say the pill, but you got the little one button on the bottom that's shaped like a pill, and you able to do anything through that. The problem is, I noticed that it seems like Google's forcing you to use that navigation, because if you go back to the button or the pill, it seemed not to work as well, where this one seemed to work much better compared to the other two. So I'm going to feel like Google's forcing you to use this. The problem is that, a lot of times when you try to go to your previous app or a previous screen, when you go to try to swipe up into the right, and you're noticing it's not really responding like it's supposed to, when it's bringing up your previous apps. And that is something like, all right, hopefully they get that fixed. Now, another thing that's kind of frustrating me. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, this idea of using a different navigation thing, I noticed, and I made a note of this, is that, like years and years ago, this is not anything new. It's like the backyard developers, man, they had made a feature, like I think it was Pi navigation, where basically you can go ahead and go and remove your on-screen buttons, and you can swipe from the right, and then bring up a little like a pie. I say a pie, but it's really like a 3 little buttons, and you can decide to go back home or previous apps. And again, at the time, even it worked pretty good, but it had its issues, minor bugs. It wasn't a big deal. And for me, I didn't like the idea of swiping from the right to the left or something, because it got in the way. But the fact that it worked pretty decent for then, and here we are now, years later, and Google had more than enough time to even see where we at with this, and other companies who are doing a better job with on-screen navigation. It's sad that we're still seeing that Google's kind of struggling with this, but hopefully they'll get it right soon, and we start seeing some updates and fixes. Even though this had been a problem before Android 11, I can argue that this on-screen navigation has been a problem for the past 2 builds, and I don't know if Google should maybe think about going back to maybe the pill, or at least think about finding ways to fix this. But another thing that I would say more of a gripe for me is, for example, is this swipe all the way to exit, or the back button. We got to swipe from the right of the screen or right edge of the screen. Now, the problem I have with that is, I think we all have done this. We're reading through an article and trying to navigate, and you accidentally, or you are swiping to the right to finish reading. Next thing you know, you're going back, and it's like, man, that is something that's kind of annoying. I wish that, again, this is why I prefer more of a pill versus that swipe, because, again, we're navigating through our screen a lot, and, you actually swipe back because you're trying to read through an article. That can definitely get frustrating. Now, another gripe, YouTube. Look, YouTube for the past couple of years have been a very controversial subject for Google. Whether it be the YouTube, your YouTube creators having problems with the way that things been going, and some of the complaints that people have with people with YouTube Kids, and so much things going on, and a lot of changes that been implemented, and some will argue even censoring that's been going on. That's been really, really frustrating for people with YouTube. But this is more for just the regular casual viewers. Like, I'm sitting there watching a YouTube video. And a lot of us, we do this. We watch a YouTube video. Some of us will go ahead and scroll down and look at the comments or move around and see what's the next video. And how many times you actually hit something and you go to the next video? Well, in the past, when you did that, you can hit the back button, or even with the navigation, you can swipe back and it immediately go back to the previous video exactly where you was at, and you continue on. You're good to go. Well, you can't do that anymore, because when you try to go back, it actually just exit YouTube or that's it. So in order to actually go to the previous video, you got to navigate all the way down, find library, and go to your last video, or library history, and then the previous video you were watching. And it's like, why am I having to do all that just to go back to the previous video when it was an accidental touch that caused me to go to this video? And to me, that's annoying. I'm like, man, it got to be a faster way to be able to go back to the previous video versus having to go all the way down to the library. So I definitely didn't like that. Also, man, this is something that's really, really frustrating me. These next two things is that it seems like Google is forcing you to use things that you really wouldn't want to use. And these next two are classic examples of that. Like right now, if you go to search something, right? And I personally, before, when I want to search something, I will go into Chrome and I will search through the Google home page, right? And the reason for that, because, a lot of times if I find something, especially image, I may want to copy, download it and share it to someone. Or even, some things, let's say it's an article or something I'm reading, I want to save it to my collections, and there are sometimes I just want to go to the Google homepage to access my collections. Now, what collections are, if you go, and this is on your phone, if you go to the Google homepage, you hit the hamburger, which is the 3 horizontal lines on your left, you're going to see it bring down a box, and you're going to see what it says, collections. You click on that, and it was all the articles that you saved or bookmark, it will be right there. And there are times I will read articles, or I read through articles, and then I'll hit collection, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to come back and finish reading through that, or I want to, look deeper into that, because a lot of times you see an article and you want to go, and you're like, I don't have time to finish reading the whole thing, but I definitely want to check that out later. Or, you know what, this is a good article, I want to share this with someone, and I don't want to have to look for it, I don't want to forget about it, so let me go ahead and bookmark that so later I can find it and I can share it with someone. So I like being able to find that. Now, if you go now into Chrome and hit search, if it forces you to use the Google search bar. And my problem with that is, one, it don't take me to the Google homepage where I can get my collection. But here's the other thing. If you search an image or search for something and you go to image, a lot of times it won't allow you to copy and save that, because it was searched through the search bar. In order for you to save an image, you actually have to search it from the Google homepage. And then you can save and copy that image. And like I say, the reason why we're copying and saving the image is because you want to share it with someone and say, hey, check this out, and you're not able to do that unless you do it from the Google homepage. And that to me is it's so annoying. It's like, Google, you're forcing me to use your search bar, and I really don't want to use it right now. And there are times I do want to use your Google search bar, but when I'm looking up for an image, it's like the fact that I can't just copy and paste it from there, or copy and save an image from something that I searched from your search bar and have to search it from the homepage. It's kind of defeating the purpose of what I'm trying to do using Google search. So to me, that is definitely a very, very frustrating thing. I say one of the last things that's kind of frustrating for me is they're forcing us to go from Google Music to YouTube Music. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that when Google Music came out, or Google Play Music, everyone's all excited about it. We all had our rights, but we finally got used to it. We finally got implemented to it. It started working. They got all the bugs out of it. It started working. It was good. It's like everything's working. And now they're trying to force us off of that and using YouTube Music. Why? Because they're trying to compete with Spotify. And I get that. I get it, having a app to compete with Spotify. But for some of us, we don't want a Spotify app. I actually use my YouTube Music app as, to play my playlist of music when I go to the gym, right? And when I'm done my workout, I may get to a certain song or end my workout at a certain song, and I want to pick up the next day on the next song and continue on through that. Well, that would be very easy to do because when I was using Google Play Music, the next day, as soon as I open up Google Play Music, it actually opens exactly where you left off at. Perfect. That's where I want. But that's not the case with YouTube Music. Once I'm done and I close out of YouTube Music the next day, in order for me to go to my same playlist for my workout, I have to open YouTube Music, have to navigate back to the playlist, and then when I open my playlist, it starts from the top. So for someone like me who have a bunch of songs in my playlist, I probably have over 200-300 songs in there, and I got to actually segment it a certain way, because there's some songs I may want to lift, depending on leg day or running day or whatever, and I have it set up where these are the songs I want to listen to for here, or these whatever, and I just scroll down and up whenever and stay in that segment depending on how I'm feeling that day. Well, if I'm opening up YouTube Music, I'm starting from the top. Now I got to scroll all the way down to the bottom or where I was at to find where I left off at, and then continue on with my workout. To me, that's taking away some time, and I do not like the fact that Google is forcing me to use YouTube Music. I really wish they would allow us to, keep Google Play Music, keep using it, and maybe make YouTube Music the primary option for something else. But for me, I don't understand what Google is doing with that, because it seems like we finally get something working. It's like they just killed it to force you to use something else. And look, I've been a fan of Google for a while, and I'm still going to be a fan of Google apps and Google phones, but I'm going to be critical of them when I need to be. I'm not a sheep, I'm not a fan that's going to say, yeah, everything that Google does is perfect. Everything that Google does is right. Everything that Google does is the answer. No, there are a lot of things that Google does that just straight up just messed up. And I want to call it out when it happens. Because in order for us to see change, you got to be willing to call that stuff out. And you got to be willing to be criticized when it needs to be criticized. Or be critical when you need to be critical. Because again, you can't just say that everything's great when it's not. And I respect people who are fans of whatever and willing to say, hey, whether it be you're a fan of an iPhone or a fan of this platform, and say, hey, I like them, but this is one of the things that I have a gripe with. Because let's be honest, not everything's perfect, and not everyone got it together. There's some things that Apple do good, and there's some things that obviously Google does good. In fact, I'm having to get familiar with Apple right now because my current job, or that I'm at just now, that I just started, they gave us a company phone. It's a company iPhone. And I was joking around with a couple people because I know a lot of people know I'm an Android person. They're like, so how you feel about having to use an iPhone? And I joke around like, yeah, man, I'm not feeling that. But at the end of the day, look, I'm not, an alien to Apple. I have an iPad to the left of me. I have a MacBook Pro that I edit on. Even though I prefer Google phones and Chromebooks, I'm familiar with it. Now, there are some things with iOS that do bug me. And I'm, noticing that even more having to use it for the iPhone. And again, it's why for me as a daily driver as a phone, I'm going to use my iPhone. Or not my iPhone, but my Android device. But there are some things that Apple do that is good that I prefer or wish that Google implement. One of the things that people talk about a lot is Apple or iMessage. It's very, very good. It's much better. Matter of fact, I have a Bible study group, and they joke around with me a lot. All of them are iPhone users except for me. So they're like, man, so you the guy that had the blue bubble. And I'm like, what's the blue bubble? Which I know what it is. But at the end of the day, man, look, we all have platforms that work better for us and that we prefer. But even the platforms that we love and prefer, be willing to be critical and be real with it, because, there's some things that can be changed and needs to be changed. And I want to see Google make some changes, especially to their software, because this year with Android 11, as much as I'm a big fan of being the first to a new software and the first to adopt something, I'm noticing Android 11 was really, really buggy this year and it had a lot of problems. And I know, Google's going to clean it up. It's going to get it fixed. And for, those of us on Pixel devices, we're going to see those fixes real soon. And hopefully those of you guys that are using like Samsung or some other devices, man, as much as we are critical of manufacturers like Samsung and them for being slow to update their phones, this is the one time where I say, man, it makes sense for them to slow down, because if they were to implement the same build that's out right now, man, you guys would be frustrated with dealing with some of these software bugs we're dealing with. So with something like that, it's like, man, with them being willing to slow down, say we're gonna wait for Google to clean up some of these issues and put out a better build, and then we'll cop on top of that. We'll build on top of that makes much more sense, because for a lot of your manufacturers, they have a lot of stuff ready to go and set to go, but they're still waiting on testing, and it makes sense for them to wait, because for you guys to get a old build, of Android 11 kicked out to you, let's say around December with all the bugs on there, and we on a Pixel, we get a newer build of Android 11 that, have all the fixes and all that stuff. You're going to be like, man, Android 11 is buggy and it sucks. We're going to be like, yeah, it did suck, but it's much better now because we got the fixes. And, Samsung, they are slow to give you a fix, especially if you want a carrier like AT&T or Verizon where they're slow to get you your updates. Then it's going to be much longer for even you to get your updates and your security bills and all that other stuff to fix the problems that, Google had fixed a long time ago. So